Imagine, just for a second, that you are the absolute most famous celebrity on the entire planet. Like, people are literally fainting when you walk into a room.
Yeah, or crowds literally fighting over your discarded gloves in the street.
Right. You have the world at your fingertips. You can do whatever you want. So what do? Well, you lock yourself away to write this intensely private, incredibly complex musical diary about, wandering around a mountain in Switzerland.
It is a complete pivot, going from the deafening external noise of global fame to the total, almost intimidating silence of your own internal landscape. And that shift is exactly what makes the music we are looking at today so profoundly unusual.
Welcome back to our dedicated listener, the learner, to today's custom deep dive. We usually think of 19th century classical music as, well, maybe a bit stuffy.
Right, a bunch of people in wigs following very rigid rules.
Exactly. But today we were exploring what is essentially a 19th century concept album. It's a psychological travel vlog, only it wasn't recorded in high-definition video. It was recorded purely in sheet music.
The focus of our deep dive today is Franz Liszt's monumental cycle, Année de Pèlerinage, which translates to Years of Pilgrimage. And specifically, we are drilling down entirely into the first book of this cycle, titled Première Année, Suisse or Switzerland.
And just to set the ground rules for you, the learner, we are strictly focusing on the content, the style, and the mechanical genius of the music itself.
Right, going straight to the source.
Yeah, we are completely bypassing any outside commentary or analysis from the modern author who compiled the text for this deep dive. We're not even going to mention their name. We just want to look at the raw, unfiltered notes on the page.
That's the best way to do it.
So, okay, let's unpack this. To understand how strange this diary is, we really need to understand who Franz Liszt was when he was writing it.
Well, Franz Liszt lived from 1811 to 1886, and he is, one of those historical figures who almost defies description because he was just so much larger than life.
Yeah.
Today, our default image of a classical composer is like someone sitting quietly in a dusty parlor with a quill, carefully writing out symphonies.
Very polite, very quiet.
Exactly. But Liszt was a sheer phenomenon. He was a touring superstar with a level of fame that rivaled a modern-day stadium pop star.
Wow.
His performances were so electrifying that the poet Heinrich Heine actually coined the term Listomania to describe the literal frenzy of his fans.
Listomania. So he's this touring superstar playing sold-out halls, generating absolute chaos wherever he goes. But wait, if he's writing for the piano, how is he filling massive concert halls?
What do you mean?
Well, my understanding of the early piano is that it was kind of a delicate, drawing room instrument. It couldn't really compete with a full orchestra.
Oh, you hit on something really important there. Liszt didn't just play the piano. He essentially forced the instrument to evolve.
Really? How so?
During his lifetime, piano manufacturers were adding iron frames and heavier strings to the instrument. Liszt took full advantage of that industrial upgrade.
Oh, right. So it could physically be louder.
Exactly. He pushed the technical boundaries so far that he proved a single person sitting at a piano could produce the depth, the volume, and the sonic range of a 70-piece symphony orchestra.
Which makes the premise of this album even wilder to me. You have a guy who can conjure the sound of an entire orchestra with 10 fingers, and he decides to write a deeply intimate travel journal.
Yeah, it's a huge shift in focus.
So how does a project like Année de Pèlerinage even come together? It sounds massive.
It was massive. It wasn't just dashed off in a weekend between tour dates, that's for sure. The cycle actually consists of 3 books written and revised over many, many years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, containing 26 pieces in total. Book 1, Swiss, which we are analyzing today, focuses heavily on nature and the Swiss landscapes.
Right.
Then Book 2, Italy, transitions to reflecting on Italian art and poetry. And finally, Book 3, written much later in his life when he was living in Rome, explores incredibly dark, religious, and philosophical themes.
It really feels like watching a human being evolve in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Book 1 is almost a travel documentary, where the camera starts off pointing at the beautiful snow-capped scenery, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, the lens turns inward to focus on the person holding the camera.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
But I have to push back a little here on the historical context.
Sure, go ahead.
If you are listening to this and you know a bit about 19th century music, you might be thinking, wasn't music back then mostly absolute music?
Ah, yes. absolute music.
Like a sonata was just a sonata, notes for the sake of notes. It wasn't supposed to be a literal story about a mountain, right?
And that is the crucial distinction that separates Liszt from his predecessors. What you're describing, absolute music, was indeed the standard.
Right, like Beethoven or Mozart just writing a symphony in C minor.
Exactly. Composers wrote symphonies, and it was just about the mathematical beauty of the structure. But Liszt was a relentless champion of what we call program music.
Program music.
Yeah. He fundamentally believed that music could and should have an explicit narrative. He wasn't just writing pretty melodies, he was actively trying to translate the feelings of reading a poem or, the awe of looking at an alpine valley directly into a sonic format.
So he's treating the piano like a pen. He's writing literature using chords instead of words.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Romantic era in Europe was obsessed with the individual's inner world. Liszt spent time in Paris hanging out with literary giants.
Like who?
Writers like Lord Byron, Goethe, and Victor Hugo. He viewed literature and deep philosophical discussion as the absolute highest forms of human expression.
And he wanted to join that conversation.
Yes, desperately. He wanted his instrument to be able to speak that same complex language. He essentially wanted the piano to philosophize.
I love the idea of a piano philosophizing, but, designing a philosophical journey requires serious architecture.
It really does.
Like, if you're putting together a track list for an album today, you think obsessively about the flow. You don't put 3 slow, depressing songs right at the very beginning because you'll lose the listener.
Right. Pacing is everything.
So how does Liszt actually lay out Book 1 to manipulate what we feel?
The architecture of the Switzerland book is brilliant because he heavily relies on the principle of contrast. There are 9 tracks in total.
Okay, 9 tracks.
He starts you off with very heroic, grounded, and pastoral themes. Track 1 is Chapelle de William Tell's Chapel, which is grand and noble.
Right.
Then track 2 is O Lac de Wallenstadt, which gently mimics the lapping of water on a lake. And that's followed by track 3, Pastoral, a lovely rustic morning scene.
So if you're the listener, you're lulled into this deeply peaceful state. You're just taking a virtual walk through the Swiss Alps, enjoying the fresh air.
Precisely. Up until you reach the dead center of the album. Piece number 5. He drops a track called Orage,
which translates to storm. Here's where it gets really interesting, because placing a massive, violent storm track exactly in the middle of all these gentle lakes and springs is a deliberate psychological ambush.
It absolutely is an ambush.
Your guard is completely down, and boom, you get hit with a hurricane. Let's talk about the physical reality of playing this. If he's trying to conjure a terrifying storm using just a wooden box with strings, how does he do it? Does he just smash the lowest keys as hard as he can?
Well, he creates a wall of sound, but it is incredibly methodical. The mechanics of Orage are just a masterclass in tension. It is what we call monothematic. Meaning it relentlessly hammers away at one main musical idea. It starts with a very ominous, tight motif moving from a C to a B natural.
So it feels incredibly unsettled right from the jump.
Yeah, very unsettled. But the real violence comes from how he physically forces the pianist to use their hands. The left hand plays these incredibly rapid ascending octaves that sweep up the lower half of the keyboard.
Oh, so the left hand literally mimics the howling wind rushing at the side of a mountain.
Exactly. And while the left hand is creating that swirling wind, the right hand is tasked with the thunder.
Of course.
It plays these heavy, punishing tonic chords. But Liszt doesn't just play clean, resonant chords. He adds something called clashing appoggiaturas.
Okay, for the learner out there who might not read sheet music, what does a clashing appoggiatura actually sound like?
Right, so imagine playing a heavy, satisfying chord, but your pinky accidentally hits the wrong key right next to it a split second before the main chord lands.
Oh, that would sound awful.
Exactly. That little clash creates immediate acoustic tension. When it quickly resolves to the right note, it sounds like a sudden sharp crack cutting through the air.
Wow.
Liszt uses those dissonant grace notes to mimic the sudden, unpredictable crack of lightning and thunder cutting through the wind.
That is terrifying, but it also sounds insanely difficult to physically play. Your hands are flying everywhere. You're managing complex dissonance.
It's a workout.
Which brings up a suspicion I have. If Liszt was the ultimate showman, the guy who made audiences faint with his finger speed, is this storm track, and really the whole album, just a massive excuse to flex? Like, is he just showing off how fast he can play?
It's a very fair suspicion given his historical reputation, but the reality of Année de Pèlerinage is quite different.
Really?
Yeah. Make no mistake, The album requires immense virtuosic skill. There are massive arpeggios, wide leaps across the keyboard, rapid tremolos.
Right.
However, compared to his pure, dazzling showpieces, the ones he played in concert halls, just to make people gasp, this album is remarkably restrained.
Restrained. You just described a piece that sounds like a natural disaster.
I know, but what's fascinating here is what he deliberately leaves out. In the entire Book of Switzerland, across all 9 pieces, there isn't a single glissando.
Wait, a glissando is when the pianist drags their thumb or finger rapidly all the way up or down the keys, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
The classic dramatic piano sweep you see in cartoons and grand performances.
That's it. It's the ultimate flashy, crowd-pleasing trick, and Liszt practically owned it in his other works.
He doesn't use it here.
He completely omits it. Why? Because in this album, every single technique has to serve the narrative. Technique is no longer about showing off to the audience. Physical technique is the vocabulary of the storytelling itself.
I want to dig into that because it's a huge concept. How does the physical way a pianist moves their body translate into a narrative? Give me an example of how he does that.
Sure. Let's go back to the first piece, Chapelle de Yom-2. To give it that heroic, immovable, monumental feel, Liszt relies on pedal points.
What's a pedal point?
A pedal point is when the pianist holds down a single, continuous bass note at the bottom of the piano while the chords above it change and shift.
So even though the harmony is moving around, there's this anchor constantly pulling you back down.
Yes.
It gives you the physical sensation of looking at a sturdy, immovable stone chapel that has weathered centuries of storms.
You're feeling exactly what he intended. Now, for contrast, look at track 4, Au bord d'une source, which means at a spring.
Okay, so water again.
Right. Here, Liszt uses a technique where the pianist's hands must constantly cross over one another. He treats the hands almost like a game, leaping back and forth.
Oh, that's clever.
Sonically, the overlapping notes mimic the bubbling, weaving flow of water. But visually and physically, the pianist's actual body is weaving and overlapping, mirroring the streams.
That is brilliant. The physical choreography of playing the piece is actually part of the art.
Exactly.
But what about when he wants to convey an internal emotion rather than a physical object like a chapel or a spring?
That's where it gets really deep. Look at track 8, Le Mal du Pays, which translates to homesickness.
Right.
He uses a distinct rhythmic pattern that mimics a cymbalum, which is a traditional Hungarian string instrument, to immediately evoke a sense of longing for his cultural past.
A musical callback to his roots.
Yeah. But the real psychological trick here is his use of unmeasured pauses. He just writes in these gaps where the music completely stops.
It just hangs there. That must feel so uncomfortable for the listener. Usually music is always driving forward to the next beat.
That discomfort is entirely the point. The silence simulates a mind that is wandering.
Oh, wow.
Imagine being paralyzed by nostalgia, losing your train of thought, and just staring off into the distance. The silence does as much emotional work as the notes do.
It's almost like an actor on stage pausing in the middle of a monologue to show grief, rather than just shouting the lines.
Exactly right.
And that brings us to what I think is the masterpiece of the album, the piece where he really proves that technique is just a tool for psychological mapping. Track 6, Vele Doberman.
Vele Doberman is the absolute heavy hitter of the album. It is based on a famous French novel from the era about a solitary, melancholic hero wandering the Alps, grappling with the profound meaning of life and his own isolation.
Heavy stuff.
Very. Now, if you were a composer in the 19th century, and you wanted to write a big, serious philosophical piece, the standard operating procedure was to use sonata form.
Right, which is basically the blueprint for classical music.
Right.
You introduce theme A, then you introduce a contrasting theme B, you mash them together in the middle to develop them, and you neatly resolve them at the end.
Exactly. It's a very logical, structured argument.
But Liszt doesn't do that.
Liszt completely abandons sonata form here. He realizes that human psychology doesn't work in neat, logical ABA blueprints.
No, our minds are messy.
So instead, he pioneers a technique called thematic transformation. He takes one single descending melancholy melody, initially played very slowly in the key of E minor, and he uses that exact same sequence of notes for the entire massive piece.
Okay, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. E minor is a key that naturally sounds a bit sad or dark to the human ear because certain notes are lowered.
Right.
So he starts with this sad melody, but he uses it for the whole piece. Doesn't that get boring?
Not at all, because he doesn't just repeat it. He twists it, He stretches the rhythm, he repaints its harmony, and he forces that single melody through 4 distinct psychological stages.
So it's like a movie where the main character has a specific musical theme.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
In Act 1, when the character is lonely, the theme is played on a solo cello, like a sad whisper. In Act 2, the character goes to war, so that exact same melody is blasted by heavy brass and war drums as a violent battle march.
Exactly.
And in Act 3, when they find peace, it's played softly by a choir as this triumphant anthem. It's the exact same musical DNA, the same notes, but the meaning has entirely changed based on the context.
That is a perfect analogy. You are hearing the same sequence of notes, but Liszt is showing you how a single thought evolves in the human mind over time.
So what are the 4 stages in Ballet Doberman?
It begins with total introversion. It's slow, halting, with those rests we talked about, creating a deep sense of unease. The melody literally sounds depressed, struggling to even articulate itself.
It's the musical equivalent of not wanting to get out of bed.
Yes. Then it transitions into the second stage, a pastoral calm. The harmony lightens up. It's almost an illusion of peace, like the wanderer looking at a pretty view and feeling temporarily okay.
But I'm guessing that superficial peace can't last.
It can't. Which breaks us into the third stage, a stormy, dissonant conflict. The melody is now screaming, fighting with itself, using heavy chords and chaotic rhythms.
The battle march phase of the movie.
Exactly. Finally, we push through the storm and reach the fourth stage, resolution.
Nice.
The melody expands, the harmony opens up into a major key, and we achieve this hard-won, sweeping emotional clarity. It is the ultimate proof that Liszt wasn't just writing a pretty tune about a valley. He was mapping the architecture of the human psyche.
That sounds emotionally exhausting in the best possible way. But if you're producing this album, you can't just end the experience there. After you drag the listener through the depths of their own soul in Ballet Doberman, how do you conclude this leg of the pilgrimage?
Right, you can't just leave them there.
You have to give the listener a way to decompress.
You have to offer them a safe harbor. And Liszt does that with the final piece in the book, Les Cloches de Genève, Nocturne, which translates to The Bells of Geneva. Interestingly, he actually struggled with this ending. He originally wrote a version of this piece that was 269 measures long, filled with complex thematic developments and big flourishes.
Sounds like typical Liszt.
Yeah, but years later, he went back and heavily revised it, hacking it down to just 188 measures.
Wait, cutting almost a third of the piece. Why? Did he just think it was too long for the audience's attention span?
It wasn't about the length in minutes, it was about the cognitive load. He realized that after the intense psychological journey of the previous tracks, the listener's brain didn't need more complexity, they needed simplicity.
That makes a lot of sense.
To create that sense of peace, he strips away the complex harmonies.
So how does he actually recreate the sound of a city's bells echoing across a dark Swiss lake without using all those complex tricks?
He sets the piece in the key of B major, which sounds warm and bright, and uses a gentle 6/8 time signature.
And 6/8 time is important because instead of marching in a strict 1-2-3-4 beat, it swings in threes, right? 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. It creates a rolling cyclical motion.
Yes, it inherently feels like gentle waves rocking a boat on a lake.
Oh, I can picture that.
The piece begins incredibly sparsely, just a single monophonic note, just one key pressed on the piano with no backing chords, no harmony, just a lonely, pure sound.
Wow.
Then he slowly adds gentle chords to simulate the distant echo of bells ringing over the water. And to make it feel truly timeless, he uses fermatas.
Remind us what those are.
Fermatas are musical symbols that tell the performer to hold a note and pause the tempo.
So he completely removes the strict ticking clock of the rhythm. The music just floats freely in the air without any urgency.
There's actually a fascinating historical detail regarding this piece. In his teaching notes, Liszt explicitly advised his students to play this opening theme unprepared.
Unprepared.
Yeah.
Like he wanted them to sight read it without practicing. That seems like terrible advice for a piano teacher to give.
No, he didn't mean a lack of practice. He meant it shouldn't sound calculated or overly interpreted by the performer. It must sound completely natural, as simple and unforced as a bell ringing in the distance.
Oh, I see.
The highest form of art here is in hiding the artifice.
That makes perfect sense. If you can hear the pianist trying to be emotional, it ruins the illusion. It should just feel like the sound is happening to you organically floating across the water.
And as the piece draws to a close, we get a beautiful coda. It features these distant, syncopated bass chords, meaning they hit on the unpredictable offbeats and they just slowly fade away.
A quiet ending?
Yeah, the album doesn't end with a grand, crashing rock concert finale. It just fades out into the night like a boat slipping over the horizon until you can't see it anymore.
It leaves you with this incredible, lingering sense of stillness. What a journey. We started with a superstar who everyone thought was just about flash and spectacle, generating literal listomania. And we've seen how he used a stack of sheet music as a window into a 19th century mind.
He really redefined what the instrument could do.
Liszt didn't just paint pretty landscapes. He mapped the emotional weather of the human experience. He used innovative structures, dropping storms in the middle of pastures, and he used physical piano techniques not to show off, but to tell a deeply personal narrative.
This raises an important question about how we view art and virtuosity. Liszt forces us to realize that true mastery isn't about how fast your fingers move or how loud you can play. It's about your capacity to translate the invisible human experience into a form that others can actually feel in their own bodies.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? Well, if we think about the sheer focus and deep internal reflection required to write and to truly listen to an de pèlerinage, it leaves us with a provocative question about our own era.
It does.
Today, our attention is fractured into thousand-piece puzzles. We consume media in 15-second vertical videos, constantly swiping to the next hit of dopamine. So the question is, could a modern-day Years of Pilgrimage even exist today?
That's a tough one.
If a global superstar locked themselves away to map the slow, complex architecture of their own soul, will we even have the attention span left to sit in the silence and listen to it? And furthermore, we constantly document our travels with high-definition photos and videos that capture exactly what a place looks like. But Liszt challenges us to ask, how do we document what a place feels like?
Exactly.
The next time you visit somewhere beautiful, try putting away the camera and asking yourself, if this landscape were a piece of music, what would it sound like? Something to ponder the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone the second a room gets quiet.